little about two black candidates. I want to say one thing, that this is just one of my favorite things about this election season, because I think it is kind of like say what you want about her just specifically, but I think about what it would have meant. I watched a lot of news. I was raised by my grandparents who were also born in 1918 and 1921. So two like really old country black parents raising this, little girl.
We can tell.
You can tell that I'm, but I put my shoes on right before this. But so we watched the news all day. And just thinking about what it would have felt like to see someone like Kamala walk by and me ask my grandma, who is that? And she'd say, oh, she's running for president. That happens for little 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 black little girls right now. And I don't know, I think that's something, representation I think matters more than people realize.
Absolutely.
And
symbolism.
I do like that, because it just, maybe she shouldn't win, but it shows other little girls that they could run, and it's something feasible, and I think that's cool. I don't
promise
know.
I'll be really fast, because this is the thing. I know,
Well, no,
I'm sorry, you guys.
I'll just say
Yes,
on your
please.
point. So, my son is 10, and he was born in 2009, and probably about 3 or 4 years ago, I'm saying to myself, dude, why are you so confident? Like, he's got unbelievable confidence, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of the kids, a lot of the young black kids that are his age are really confident. And then I started to, think, and I said, well, man, he was born in a world where there was a black president.
Yeah.
So for my son, like his idea of what he can do is far more expansive than I ever dreamed of for myself personally. And it was because of that symbolism.
Yeah.
So much so that when he was at a birthday party during the election of Trump, and the kids in the party, I'll never forget it, literally saw the TV and started booing. When they saw Trump, they were 7, they were booing.
And they're so aware.
Yeah, and it was a shift for me, because I'm saying, well, he's gonna transition from this, what he experienced and seeing a president on TV that he could relate to this thing that was a complete opposite in terms of just approach, focus, and how you relate to people. So I look at the symbolism as an important piece, but we have to be very careful, particularly with.
No, listen, we're talking symbolism, okay? Yeah, I think it's great that she's running. We're talking symbolism.
Right.
Let's talk about those two candidates. Let's talk about Cory Booker and Kamala Harris. I do think there's so many different ways we can go with this. What do you guys think about how their blackness is kind of being policed by people all around?
It is, and I actually feel for them, having grown up in a community that was predominantly pretty much all white. And then when I'd return to black communities, when I'd go back to St. Louis for family reunions or whatnot, it was this thought that you're not black enough. And so you get from the white communities, you're not black enough because you don't meet a stereotype. But then you get from the black communities, you're not black enough because you don't meet another stereotype. And it's like you don't have this place. And so when I see people call out Booker and Harris for their, lack of having a huge black card or whatever, it's just, it gets old and it's unfortunate. And I think that that's also what holds black people back. This thought that we are all this whole monolithic, one of a kind thing, as opposed to individuals with our own individual agency, our own experiences and our own perceptions, thoughts and ideologies about this world.
And with that, it's something that's also taught broadly by our society in general. So when a black person acts black, because I grew up in St. Louis and I grew up around both, but it's mostly because of desegregation, gotta be honest.
Right.
I remember the desegregation program because folks the buses went to the city and brought them out to other parts, to different schools for better schools, the whole purpose of that. And I was put in this particular situation until they were like, oh man, you can jump, oh you can play ball, you run track? It was like, and then there was this mesh, and then I had my preconceived notions about them too, because I didn't know. So it ended up turning into a chance for an experience to be shared, but it was only because we could identify with each other visually. Yes. It took a couple years, but it got there. And but so in professional settings, black folks may think I'm this certain way, and then when you go in with those settings, you get perceived and treated differently. So everyone knows what code switching is. So and it happens, and then when I've caught myself doing it, I'm like, I'm still doing that every once in a while, you know? And it just happens. It's what we're taught. And no matter, I figure, man, I'm 39 years old.
Yeah, it is. It's very much a survival mechanism.
Yeah, and amongst whoever. And then, so at one point I was blaming, fellow black folks, but then I had to realize where it came from. And then it was able, they had the same misconceptions and possible fears about me that I had about them. Right. Yeah. And to learn that was eye-opening. It changed, your whole perception of life. But I'm sorry, with identity politics, identity politics is always seen as a negative thing, and I think a lot of
if you can strip away your identity,
it's crazy to go. And these identity politics voters, the reason why identity politics is a thing, first of all, previous presidents before Obama, all white men, right?
Yep.
That's not identity politics.
No.
Why is that not a bad thing? And the reason why the identity of the person that's running for office is a big deal is because maybe they'll understand my experience and maybe do something differently about it. Because previous presidents and the one we got now said, you know who I am? I'm a racist. And everyone who believes in racist policies, I'm gonna carry those out. And he's trying, and he's doing it a lot in many ways.
Yes.
Why is that not frowned upon? You're answering the call to your voters. So if someone gets the black vote, shouldn't people say, why haven't you done enough for all those black folks yet that you got their vote for?
Absolutely.
Because for some reason that's a bad thing.
Yeah.
Why is it a bad thing when someone says, yep, black folks got me in office, these are the policies I'm gonna do to better their lives because they're the reason I'm here and I understand what that'll do for the country. Not just them, what it'll do for the country. And it's still an argument I think a lot of politicians aren't ready to make because it still will sink you. You're just pandering to black folks and we don't really care about them.
You just want their vote. There's something that's kind of been happening this election process so far that happened last year too, and it bothers me. I think that I will never be one to say that I know what was going through a black person's mind when they made certain decisions, someone who is 40, 50, 60 years older than me. And I think older black people who weren't supporters of Bernie Sanders weren't ignorant. They weren't stupid. And I think that there's kind of that sentiment that like they don't know what's best for them. And I think that a lot of young people have to watch that. When people aren't, it's not just name recognition. There was a lot of that. There's a lot of that, period. That's why Biden is doing well and he's white. Like, you know what I mean? He's a white man and there's a lot of white people who like him because of name recognition. But I think that, especially with so many different people and so many, when the CBC, I kind of supports Kamala or supports Biden or supports Booker, I think that there are ways in which we can discuss problems with that without discounting that these are people that have been through things that we can never imagine. And sometimes, when I see people like that saying this is the right person, my first thought is, well, let me hear what he's saying. Like, you know what I mean? And I wish that when we're talking about like respect, and sometimes before we even get to the point of where they got me here, let me listen to them. Sometimes we don't even listen to people in the beginning. And maybe you still won't agree, but I don't like how so many of our elders are just discounted as dumb because that reminds me of the past. And that's how they were always treated. I don't know, maybe I'm off base here, maybe. Do you get what I'm saying?
Has that kind of been what's resonating among certain campaigns that
this
older
is kind of what
black
I
people
see on Twitter, just with, not necessarily coming from the campaign.
Right.
Conclusions are being made about folks before you fully know is the thing. And well, for a lot, because we're in the bubble of paying attention.
Yes, that's right.
And we forget that a vast majority of Americans don't have the time, maybe the interest or desire to get that deeply involved in it because politicians will lie to you every day. And then it's a lot of times our job to see what they lied about, look back into what they maybe did before, or maybe look into the thing that they're pursuing and find out that it really doesn't make much sense. But if you just got home from your 9 to 5 and you got 2 kids, you don't have time to sit and watch C-SPAN. I watch C-SPAN.
It's embarrassing
C-SPAN.
How much I like C-SPAN. I feel seen. I'm so glad you said that.
I didn't watch C-SPAN before. I tried to get into broadcast to do sports broadcasts because I was like, I'm not gonna be doing any more sports anymore. Time to start doing some broadcasts. I'll do sports broadcasts. I can call a game. I can analyze. And then I got mixed up with Jake Uger and he's like, politics. I was like, okay, and whatever. And then I ended up watching C-SPAN. So people don't have time to do that or energy to do that because it's exhausting when I do it. So who can watch a 4-hour hearing, Senate subcommittee hearing about an aspect of life. Who watched Ta-Nehisi Coates this today?
Yep.
Well,
and Danny Glover.
But this is why. So this is why journalism is important, and like true journalism, right?
I completely agree.
For the people that don't have the time and are overwhelmed with life, part of the I guess you would say the contract with the citizens from a journalistic point of view should be that the journalists are presenting the truth to the people so that they're doing the work that the everyday, person that's just out here trying to survive doesn't have to weed through and can make a clear decision. But because journalism has become as NBA, in my opinion, the people on TV these are personalities. These are not journalists. These people read scripts. These people don't deliver the information to the citizens the way that they should. So you're literally locking people out intentionally. We have literally, if we always talk about corruption in other countries and voting rights in other countries, we have very little people who are engaged in the political process in this country, and it's intentional.
Yes.
They don't want people voting. They don't want people knowledgeable about the realities of this country. And when we're able to sort of maintain these stories and people not being able to respond to the everyday, they can't trust what's in this paper because you don't know what this writer or what this personality, who they're trying to slant you toward. That's where journalism has to stand in the void. That's where journalism should be, right? And that's where, again, I commend you guys for what you do on this network, because you at least present an honest front for
or reason behind the opinion. I'm sorry, Adrienne, I know you.
Oh yeah, well, I was just thinking from the standpoint of kind of building off that media, it does very much matter from representation, but also to what stories are being told, how they're being told, and when the media gets too large, which it kind of is right now, in terms of having a lot of corporate control and government, we don't end up getting the information we need, especially about candidates, and you see an incestuous relationship between media companies and government, and it furthers the problem, and thus the media is not that first line of defense. And so, it's better that independence be actual independence in media.
Imagine if access to, say, the GM, I'm glad you brought up, you calling it the NBA, a GM for the Warriors, for like a journalist to talk to about whatever, the draft is tomorrow. It's like, who are you guys thinking about for drafting? Because the GM doesn't like that journalist or that institution he works for, says, I'm not talking to you anymore. So that reporter now has to go, man, I can't ask that particular GM certain questions or else he's gonna cut off my access completely and I'm gonna get fired from my job. That's the way politics works. The players, being the politicians, are like, don't ask me that question, I can't answer that. Don't talk to me anymore, I don't like it. And they cut you off, and then because they know if they cut you off, that's your lifeline.
Yes, that's right.
They control, they hold the keys and they know that. And so now, imagine if that reporter has to lie about what this GM is gonna do or has said or done in the past, or even what he's working with, just so he can get in good with this GM. That's what our reporters have had to do, some have had to do, because they want the access. So they lie, or when the person lies to them, they're afraid to write. The reality is this, but this politician said that, because then they'll go, you're slandering me.
Right.
That is such a good point. I never even thought about that analogy, that our politicians are treating us like Russell Westbrook treats old boy from the Oklahoman. That is not okay. Like, you know what I mean?
The TYT Plus app is now available on iOS and Android. Download to get more TYT content at tyt.com/app.